Tonight, Shannon Sharpe is on the offensive. He's vowing to sue his rape accuser and attorney, Tony Buzbee, for defamation, who is based right here in Houston. Now, after the allegations she made against him in that lawsuit we have all heard about. The promise came just minutes after the woman's attorney, Tony Buzbee, released a partial audio file to TMZ Sports that he claims shows Sharpe threatening his client, who is seeking $50 million in damages. Let's take a listen.
I don't want to be, don't manipulate me.
Oh, Lord have mercy. If you say that one more time, I'm going to choke out of you when I see you.
Well, I don't want to be choked.
Yes, you do.
Now, Sharpe refutes the claim, saying he and his accuser were in a consensual relationship. His attorney claims the accuser turned down a $10 million settlement before filing the lawsuit. Before the release of the new audio, Sharpe put out a video calling the lawsuit a shakedown. Meantime, Buzbee claims Sharpe released a false and misleading statement through his attorney. Joining us to talk about it tonight here on The Factor, owner of Boost One Marketing, Sherry Hendrinos, attorney Simone Redwine, and Mickey Crawford McGill, the NFLPA member and NFL advisor. Glad to have you all here. Does this, Mickey, at all surprise you to see an allegation? You've worked in the NFL for years. You've been an advisor. Does this surprise you with a former athlete as well who's high profile right now?
No, not at all. I mean, the problem is when you're in the public eye, everything you do is scrutinized. You walk across the street and you get a jaywalking ticket, it makes national news. So being in that world, you have to be very vigilant about what you do and keep receipts on your own, things that you do. Very important.
And have we seen some receipts here, Simone, as an attorney,
there were
from
some
your
receipts
perspective?
that were released by each side. So from Shannon's side, he released some text messages that show that there's a timeline and show that even after the first alleged rape, she continued to solicit him and ask him to have sex with her and invite him over. Then there's also text messages that Attorney Buzbee released that show that she stated to Shannon after the second instance where she's saying, I told you no means no. It doesn't matter if all the prior times I said yes, I was crying and I said no means no.
All right, Sherry, from your perspective as a PR marketing crisis expert, and you have worked with many NFL individuals, you came from the NFL yourself, your thoughts about this, the optics, how it looks for Shannon Sharpe?
You know, it never looks good, right?
Right.
I always think perception is everything. But unfortunately, like you were saying, you know, when you're in the public eye, everything is on a microscope. I've heard crazy stories of things happening. One of a client I worked with, he was in Vegas and hanging out with a female, and she stole his wallet and his phone and tried to get him to pay her $20,000 just to get it back. Of course, that wasn't as public as this, but unfortunately, that's what's going to happen. Obviously, his PR team is immediately on it. You can tell by his statement he released and releasing his ends. I am no lawyer like you are, but all I can do is talk about what, you know, I would do, and it's always trying to get in front of the story, you know, and try to get ahead of it. So obviously this is a big thing. I know he's had some like hiccups, but overall Shannon has a pretty good image. People like Shannon Sharpe. They really do. They like him as a person, and he's a good businessman. You don't hear any of those kind of bad things about him, right? We haven't heard any of that stuff.
But I think here one of the challenges that he's going to have as far as crisis management is his attorneys confirmed that they did mediation and that he offered her tens of millions of dollars.
I saw that.
And I think the average lay person would assume if you're offering 10 million, 20 million, you must have done something.
And of course, I think there was eventual clarification from that attorney to say 10 million instead of tens of millions of dollars.
Correct.
So, I mean, what does that look like, Sherry? I mean, if he's offered a settlement that we hear, we don't know for a fact, but if he allegedly offered that settlement, what does that mean?
You know, like she was saying, immediately people think, oh, well, you're guilty. I would never give someone $1 if I wasn't guilty. Why would I even offer that?
You know? I would, and I've told my clients too. In that instance, it was alleged that he had a $100 million deal on the table.
We're going to talk about that next break.
That's coming up. Yeah, he is getting a big deal. His podcast is killing it. We were just talking before the show that he's kind of even bigger in the spotlight now than when he played football. He's a Hall of Famer. You know, he's a great, amazing player. But right now, I mean, I was just at Super Bowl. He's a big deal. I do think perception's everything, but he's going to really have to be careful of how he handles this moving forward.
And of course, we'll talk about that big deal in just a moment. Simone is taking everything. Come on, Simone. We got a lot more time to talk. Don't go anywhere. We'll continue this conversation after the break. And of course, we're talking with our guest tonight about the allegations against Shannon Sharpe. And of course, Mr. McGill, when we think about a big paycheck down the road, potentially for Shannon Sharpe. First of all, tell us a little bit about that and how much does he stand to make on this deal, and would that make him more attractive for someone out there?
Oh yeah, most definitely. I mean, you have a $100 million deal on the table. That's what people see. People see the numbers. They don't know the background, how much they take home, what's the split, because a lot of times in those deals, sometimes they actually end up having to pay for their studio time and other things like that. But if someone sees that as a payday, that's their opportunity. It can be. And again, allegedly, I don't know the full extent of these situations, but again, when you see those dollar signs, hey, there's an idea, this might be able to craft, I can record a conversation, all these things can happen for sure.
And Simone, once again, you made the point, I would tell my client if they had it and they can afford to pay it, it wouldn't bankrupt them to settle.
Yes, absolutely, because a case like this is likely going to cost him $5 million alone just to fight it. And he's going to have to Johnny Depp it. I mean, take it all the way to the end once it becomes public. But the cost of it becoming public, a lot of times you simply cannot recover from that. Because once people assume that you did this and then got off on it, they never trust you again, and certain brands will never want to work with them.
And of course, Sherry, it will be a problem with the brands and the networks and the media companies. But most people don't seem to believe this about Shannon Sharpe, right?
Right, Shannon has a good reputation. Let's just going back to who he is as a human, right? Before this, because I think people forget he's human. He's a human being. He's a father. He is a businessman. Yeah, brands are going to possibly pull back, but because I think because he's had such a good reputation and he's not had you've never heard of him having any brand lawsuits, right? Like breaking any contracts. In one podcast, he was yelling at Ocho about not having a brand sign up. He's very good at that. I've seen him execute his own brands, right, as well. I think that it could be a possibility of looking at that, but I don't think they're going to make those decisions until the court gets going. Do you know what I'm saying? And also in some of these deals with the one that's on the table, keep in mind, I think you guys said it was with Spotify. Yeah. It's a little more of an edgy thing now. You're not talking about some other networks that may have just cut it right away.
Like Disney. Yeah.
There you go. I wasn't going to say it. She did. Right. But that might have cut it right away. And so I think that with Shannon, when you've had such a solid reputation for so long, and when you think about him and anything, we've never heard of him in any big lawsuits. No one's ever companies have not sued him. He's had a good reputation and good community involvement. So I do think that does help a little bit, but it's going to be interesting to see where the legal side plays out. And I think that's going to affect the brands moving forward.
And in the last 20 seconds we have here, Simone, the alleged victim.
Yes.
I mean, does she have an uphill battle with her reputation?
She's OnlyFans.
It's not just the reputation. Okay, it's not just her reputation as an OnlyFans model. It's not just that, but it's the timeline. Right. It's really difficult to believe that someone was raped twice, and then after each rape, they call you and tell you about how much sex they'd like to have with you and invite you back over to their house.
All right.
Receipts.
Credibility.